Okay. Thank you for letting Norway give our view to this about biosimilars and questions around that. I'm going to do my speech with two examples how we are working. One is about the introduction of biosimilars in Norway. The other is how we are involved in a quite big scientific research operation in Norway. So, but before I start, I have to make you attend that in Norway we have some special ways of dealing with these drugs. A minister in one of our neighbor countries said that Norway was the last communist country in Europe, and maybe we are, because all drugs used in Norway are used in state hospitals, are bought together in that the companies are offering us the drugs with a price. So there is a scientific committee who approve the drugs, and then there is another committee who are dealing with the companies regarding price and access and all these things. So then these groups, they are giving the recommendations to the physicians what to use, but the physicians, they can't choose otherwise, but then the drugs will be much more expensive, and that will of course have impact on the budget on the hospital. So that's how we are working in Norway, and we have been working like this for many years, and we have one of the cheapest cheapest drugs available in Europe, at least. We don't know how it is in the world, but in Europe it is like this. And it's rather a special system, so the Norwegian drug authorities are invited to the World Health Organization to make them to inform them about how we are working, to see if that is possible to do in other countries as well. But I'm not sure about that, and that is due to that the countries have totally different culture. Even in the Nordic country, we have different culture that make this not that easy. But this is how it's done in Norway, and all I'm going to tell you now from Norway is not the only way to the goal, but it's one way to reach something. Okay. Here's the timeline and debate in Norway regarding biosimilars. There was very rough discussions here in 2011. The pharmaceutical industry, that is the umbrella organization for the industry in Norway, took the Ministry of Health to court. That is not very common in Norway to do it like that. When you're working in the industry, you try to have a nice cooperation with the government, but here's really something's happening. And the debate starts in Parliament. And we were, at that moment, we were pushing, as a patient organization also, have contact with some politicians. Well, then we got, in 2012, we got a new government. There are the Prime Minister of Norway and the Treasurer, and there was the Ministry of Health was ordering the Norwegian Medicine Agency to make a report that so that they could make this switch automatically at the pharmacy, and that really pissed us off. I said that really made us angry. So then there was a huge mobilization from the patient organizations and other stakeholders that the first thing we should try to reach is to get the physicians. And when I talk about physicians now, I'm talking about the specialists, gastroenterologists, dermatologists, and rheumatologists. So This was a big issue also in the parliament, and then in the national budget, it was decided to put in some money for a huge study. I will come back to that. So, what did the Norwegian patient organization do? I'm talking for the IBD organization, but we have a very tight cooperation with the Roma people and the skin people. So we were going along this path. And this is maybe the most important slide for me this day, and that is education. If you don't know what you're talking about, you lose your power totally. And also as a patient organization, if you don't have the knowledge yourself, you must see to find it somewhere or try to get it yourself. And knowledge is not about the drug primarily, but also how to work with political and other stakeholders in this case. And here we have end up with the decision how to work. Is it here? Yes. So we was a group actually, and because in Norway we have very good relations with the pharmacy industry, not too good, but good, with the politicians and professionals. Professionals, we are talking about the specialists and also people who are in the top of the hospital organization in Norway. And we have a strategy together and goals, and that was to get the decision of change back to the specialists, and also the detection and registration of new safety data to be required and be understandable. We also want a register for biodrugs use in Norway. Those three patient organizations are part of FFO, that is the umbrella for all patient organizations in Norway. And they have very good connections into the parliament and into the ministries and also to the industry. So we have a joint effort here to have seminars and scientific information, and we were invited all along the way. And we also have connections and met politicians. And this then got into the press, into the papers, but also into the national television. So huge debates in the national television. And here you have the Norwegian cat and dog couple discussing biosimilars. This is the representative for the industry, and this is the representative for the Norwegian Medical Agency, who are trying to push biosimilar through the pharmacist to us. And they have some statements here, and actually none of them are correct in a way. They cannot know these things at this point. They cannot know that. The only thing that they knew is the cutback, that biosimilars are much cheaper. But the representative from the industry was playing, I think, a lot with feelings that this is so scary, and really exaggerated that a little bit, I think. And he was trying to lower this freight by the patients, and I don't think any of them have any rights of it, but that's how it is. Here is the follow-up after these happenings in the press and on the television show. Then you always get this quite big activity on Facebook and other platforms. And they ended up that the suggestions of the law that was made it able to do the biosimilar change at the pharmacy, that was dropped. And then we was back to where we wanted to be, that the change was supposed to be a question between the patient and the specialist. And that's the case today. It's in Norwegian, but what's standing here is that the patient security must be the leading thing regarding change. It's from the Roma people. So, a little bit about the Norwich study. It's a huge study, and all the IMID organization, there's Roma, dermatologists, and IBD, were invited to the first meeting. Even before they started, the patient organization were invited. That is the opposite of what you said from Spain. We are always asked these things, and that's quite nice. And what are we doing in this study? We are actually there, of course, as representatives for the patients. And what's important, really important, in this study is, of course, the inclusion activity. How to include the patient, how to talk to them. All the information letters and so were approved by all those three patient organizations before they were distributed out to the hospitals. And we were always asked during the progress of the study what we thought about things that involve the patient. Of course, it can be a little bit challenging sitting there listening to all these professor PhDs and these guys. So, but you have to have your focus on the patient. But they also have, you know. This is the official name of the study, actually. So this is should take care of all the what you need to have perform a good scientific test of these things. But as you see here, you have different diagnosis into the what do you call it? Activity. Yeah. Okay. Activity. Yes. Here you see the funding. This is funded by the Norwegian government. It's not 1 cent from the pharmaceutical industry or anybody else. It's directly from the national budget of Norway. So it's independent in that way. Here's just to show how it is in the Nordic country. You know, we are some small countries up there in the north. I say small, maybe the Dane and the Swedish and the Finns think they are big, but we think we are small. We are, regarding infliximab, we are dealing with this in different ways. You can see, as Bente told you earlier this day, there was a forced change. You also see in Norway that you get a rise in use of Remsima before the study is ended. That is actually, we don't like that actually, but you can't just have them all. So we'll see what's happening. The Swedish, our Swedish friends, they are taking biosimilars regarding infliximab. There's very low use. And our Finnish friends, they are around 40% somewhere now. The goal for this, how we are dealing with the drugs in Norway, is of course that everyone who need the drug, wherever they live in this long country should be able to get it if they need it. And that's also why we take the whole country in use when we are doing this trial. All of the regions here are participating in the trial. Here's the design for the guys who are interested in that. The last infusion will be done in June 2016, and we will have the results by October 2016 if everything goes right. It went very fast from the moment that the Norwegian government decided to spend 2.5 million euros on this trial. So we had it up and go. For us, it's quite easy to follow this further because we are in the steering group. We are on every meeting. We get all the papers. So, and if we need some guidance, we have our own physicians that we can talk to and take into the trial. But this is what we are regarding the North Switch are trying to take care of now at the end of the trial. So, regarding whether it is switching from to biosimilars or attending trials and these things, it's very important to start your engagement immediately. You have to have some people out there who can catch up things when you're all in your outside the meeting rooms already. You hear talking about things that are going to happen in Norway, I think, within 2 years. And that's very important for us to attend this, be on the platform where these stakeholders are. We ask for information, as I told you before. Maybe you have people in your organization who can sit in such groups and follow what's really happening there. Cooperation between patient organizations for us has been a great benefit to cooperate with the Dharma organization and the Roma organization. And of course we have EFCA. What about the future? We can, of course, be better, but we are a small patient organization with you have a kind of a limited use of people into all these kind of things that's happening around. That's why I'm here. I'm not in the board of LMF, actually. So I'm the fifth guy on the row to come here. But anyway, that's we must do our best to be where the decisions are made. Of course, have good connections with the politicians and the professionals. In the future, what I have heard, what they're thinking of, is that was talking about this earlier. This I forgot his name. The professor here was very good. We don't know what the impact is when you have been on these drugs, infliximab, for instance, for 20 years. You don't know what's happening, and that is now here in Europe and also overseas in Canada, but also in the States. There are a lot of talking about seponering, what you call it, to take it away, just to see if you can do that. And many of the specialists, they are looking for for parameters anywhere, kind of objective parameters that can make this safe, because we don't know if you're standing on a drug for such a drug for such a long time, you cannot be sure if it have any effect actually. And then it's going to be the most expensive, what do you call it, substitute drug ever, so to say. So that is what was happening, and also to see if you can find what we are talking about in Norway, find molecules that are not that immunogen, these are smaller and not that rigid, that can have the same effect. Somewhere in the future, I think this will pop up. I don't know when. But things are going rather fast. And things change very, very rapidly. I was trained as a veterinarian some 35 years ago, and I cannot think about how this has been through the years. So, that is what I was about to say.
Thanks, Bjorn. As we agreed at the beginning, we give the floor to questions. If you have any questions or something you really want to raise, please talk very close to the mic.
Okay? I'm a bit confused about one thing, and I would like some clarification. Maybe it's my weakness, but I feel free to ask the question. Yeah, to you. You mentioned it, so I'll ask you first. You used the terminology biosimilar infliximab. And now the confusion in my mind is infliximab... Misunderstanding? Can you please clarify what infliximab is and what Remicade is? Because I would like to clarify. There's some confusion in my mind.
When I'm talking about in this trial, when I'm talking about...
Yeah, you mentioned it at some point. Yes, I saw it.
Hello? Yeah. When I talk about the trial, I talk about the biosimilars. Sorry.
I'm
going to answer now, okay? Yes. Yes? Biosimilars, that's Remsima. That's Remsima in the trial, okay? And that is tested against Remicade. Remicade, okay? Yeah. I don't understand your question.
I have a question which is simpler than mixing all these things. What's the difference between infliximab and Remicade? I admit that I'm confused. If it can be clarified. Maybe just a very naive question, but I am not clear about it.
So, I would like to know. So, how did you get in? So, who had the initiative to get in touch? I mean, to do this study. I mean, do you get in touch with the government, with the politicians, with the scientific committees, or they decide to include your association for making this study? Because I mean, in Spain, I mean, as I was presenting, I mean, they didn't count with us at all. So I would like to know how, if you did some steps in order to reach to the situation that you had.
As I told you, the decision is done in the Norwegian Parliament during the budget discussions. So to get it in there, you have to have a joint venture, as I showed here, between the patient organizations, politicians that we know, professionals, that could be the Norwegian physicians organization. All this had one joint goal, to check out these things. And then you reach the parliament, and there was a huge, it's in the Norwegian state budget, this is not much money, you know, but it was a huge discussion, because it was a little bit about somebody have to take a step back. And that is not easy if you are very high on the ladder, you know.
Okay, thank you.
So, since the policy changed in Norway towards easier interchangeability between biologics and biosimilars, what are the experiences from the patients? Did you have any adverse reactions, such as described in the Spanish case?
I think most of our reactions is that the Norwegian state couldn't wait up on their own scientific action that they have put 2.5 million. They should have waited. That was the irritation by the patient. But we have, of course, you have patients that will state that there is worsening. But this trial is, I will not go to details, but they are very into using clinical science, as for IBD, Mayo, and all these things. And we have a huge biobank also in this trial, so that we could do trials from several years to check these things out. But they could, our opinion was that they could have waited for 1 or 2 years. But you have some money people, you know, they are pushing.
The question.
I just wonder if the Norwegian disability organizations have not discussed to apply this case to the European Commission, because it's applicable for Europe as well. I mean, that the Parliament discussed that two products should be, specific products should be compared to each other by a decision by the Parliament. It's totally funny, I think.
We are a funny people. That is how we are doing it in Norway. And it works, because in Sweden you haven't done any of these tests, and you should do that.